So I'm here with Chris Gore, director of Attack the Doc, Attack of the. I keep wanting to say Attack the Block and
I do
Attack of the
too. I
Show,
do
but I
too.
do not want to say
That's all right.
Attack of the Doc. Chris Gore, director of Attack of the Doc, which is a documentary about Attack of the Show on G4. Now, I wasn't very I was familiar with Attack of the Show in name because I've heard the name, but I don't watch a lot of TV, so I hadn't seen that. Um, but I'm very familiar with Olivia Munn. Loved her in Newsroom, and so it was great seeing a bunch of Olivia Munn on there. And so there's that. But I guess the main question is, I saw you talking about this movie about 3 years ago, and I'm guessing you're probably working on it a bit longer than that. What are some of the headaches that come along with making a doc? Because on paper it seems easy, but clearly it's not.
Well, I don't think making any movie is easy. I think that you just put just as much effort into a bad film as a good film. But this was an idea that kind of I had when I was at South by Southwest in 2017. People would approach me because I'd done a bunch of television, I've done film thread, but people would approach me and say, like, hey, whatever happened to Attack of the Show and G4 TV? What happened? And I was constantly recognized for that. And I was asked that question so much, I thought, why don't I just make a documentary about it? I'll call it Attack of the Doc. And so I registered the name and the website back in 2017. I eventually did a Kickstarter, but I think the biggest challenge was one, doing an archival documentary is difficult because what you're doing is you're using hundreds of hours of footage. You're trying to cut that down along with some new footage to relatively 90 minutes. So that was a challenge in and of itself. And when we started shooting, which was March 2020, we actually got a studio. We were a studio space where we set up to shoot. We were going to film interviews with people. And it was March of 2020. And we all know what happened in March of 2020. The world changed.
I don't know what happened. What happened in March of 2020? This is
Yeah, it just
news.
oh my God. It just the world shut down. Could we even make movies again? Could we go to the movies again? It was a challenging time for everybody. And here we had just started working on the documentary. As I saw and observed that this pandemic was not going to be over in 2 weeks, I decided we have to completely pivot. We have to have a different approach to make this documentary. So the approach that I came up with was, let's make it archival in nature. It's like a genre of documentary. There are movies like You Don't Know Me that are about showgirls. There's a movie called Belushi, which is about John Belushi, and it's all archival video footage of him mixed with animation. I thought, well, this is our approach. If we can't film people on camera in an efficient way, we'll do the interviews over live stream, and then we'll just make everything archival to kind of take you to that period of the early 2000s. But it's and look, it came with its share of challenges. It's like documentaries, it's not a simple thing. We started with like a 25-page scriptment of what I wanted the movie to be, which included things like Zach Selwyn being kind of a Greek chorus where he sings songs that tell you what's happening in the story. There's animation to kind of show different parts of the film where we didn't really have supporting footage. So, dude, it was, the first year and a half was kind of figuring it out. And then the last year and a half was really bringing it home from like a, 3-hour cut. We're getting it finally down to that, like just under 90 minutes. Look, I would not wish making an archival documentary on my worst enemy. It's a challenge, but luckily I work with some really great, just amazing crew. Bobby Schwartz, who was the editor and producer, Walter Areas, Anthony Ray Bench, Phil Eubanks, Glenn Brown, among others, who just helped edit this monstrosity into hopefully what will be a film that will entertain you and provide some member berries back to an era and back to maybe one of your favorite TV shows, if not a TV show you wished you had known about at the time.
Yeah. Also, you mentioned the Kickstarter, and I never ran a Kickstarter myself, but I've heard that there was a saying that you need to run a Kickstarter just to start your Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter itself is almost just as much, if not more, of a challenge than doing the thing that you're kickstarting. What can you say about that?
Oh, first of all, I have a lot of things to say about Kickstarter campaigns and crowdfunding in general. I've my record is 50-50. I've done 2 unsuccessful Kickstarter campaigns, followed up by 2 successful campaigns. I did one to bring back Film Threat back in 2016, and then I did another one to make Attack of the Doc. Each of those campaigns was preceded by a campaign that failed. So, and here's what I'll say about crowdfunding campaigns. They're a 24/7 job. You literally need to spend 6 months before you even launch your Kickstarter, creating media assets, getting social media accounts, someone to run those things. It's a 24/7 job. I was physically exhausted when the campaign was over. So, it's kind of crazy when I think back, like how much work that was. You're trying to convince me. You know what it is? You know what a Kickstarter campaign is?
A headache?
Well, not just that, it is, but not just that. It's the most effective thing in running a Kickstarter isn't advertising or banner ads or social posts. It's directly asking a person, will you donate to my crowdfunding campaign? It's like asking someone, how much money do you love me? It seriously is, because some people gave us, the basic like $20 or whatever. They want the digital copy. And then other people gave us, $5,000. They really wanted to see the movie made, and they wanted to see their name as a producer on the film.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's nuts. And I'll even give you, for anyone that's watching this, if you go to filmthreat.com, if you click on contact, ask me, I will send you this document that a friend of mine did about how to run a successful Kickstarter campaign, how to run a crowdfund campaign that succeeds. He wrote like this 10-page document, and I will send it to anybody, because if I can help anybody out, cool. So just contact me through Film Threat, and the contact that goes directly to me. Ask me for the crowdfunding document. I'll send it to you.
Do you think a lot of problems with Kickstarter, especially for like kickstarting movies or a comic book, or whatever artistic endeavor you want to do through Kickstarter, you think a lot of problems have to do with the fact that people just kind of undervalue art in general?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Do people undervalue art? I would agree with that. I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's true. I think that independent creators should be paid. I think they should be paid. I've on Kickstarter for myself, I've contributed to documentaries, a lot of films. I basically buy comic books on Kickstarter. So, because when I look on it as with a comic book, it's a pre-order. I'm pre-ordering something I already know that I want. But it is really, really difficult to convince someone that it's worth it. I think the thing that can kind of level you up is the more you've produced where you say you're going to do it and have it succeed, I think the more people will trust you. But the one thing that I think people don't understand when they contribute to these campaigns is generally, like, I'm very optimistic, aspirational. We're going to make this movie, and we're going to do it in a year and a half. And then it takes 3 years. It really does take a lot longer, especially if you want to do it legally, if you want to get legal clearance, if you want to release the film commercially. None of those things are easy. And so all I can say is this: I'm very patient when I contribute to a movie on Kickstarter. There's one I contributed to, and it was 5 years ago, and I just got the movie, and I don't care, because I know how long it takes. And they did a festival run, and finally I got my digital copy, and I love it. I love it. It was, and I won't say what the campaign is, but I understand, having made films before in the past, what it takes to get a film made and released. And so I'm very patient, but not so many people. A lot of people that will contribute to Kickstarters, they think, well, send me the thing. You're not done with the movie yet. So I will be much more careful in my language about when something will deliver, because it's not as if, like, with a narrative movie, you have a script, you know what you're doing, and you finish it, and it's done. With a documentary, you want to get feedback. With a documentary, you want to make sure you can legally use all the footage that's in the documentary. When it comes to the doc, like when it comes to a documentary, you want to like have other people see it, get opinions. The third act of the doc was a challenge. We changed it many times, and finally, it wasn't until just before we did a screening at San Diego Comic-Con, just by invitation only, where we got feedback from people, and it was like, oh, this isn't working. That got a big laugh. That didn't work. We need to change this. That information's too soon. Like, we changed the third act of the film. So movies percolate. And it used to be, back in old Hollywood, even in the 70s, you would finish a movie and the movie would come out probably 18 months later. A year, 18 months later, you'd spend a year editing. Now they shoot right up until they're adding scenes, right up until, you know, it debuts in theaters. Movies will, you know, they know the release date before the script is written. That doesn't necessarily result in good films. I think that notes, feedback is like air to an artist, and it's really important to get feedback. What worked, what didn't work, what can we improve, what can we make better, what do we need to make more clear so the audience understands? And also, how can we, along with all of that, how can we entertain you so you walk away with a good experience?
Yeah. Also, you know, obviously review a bunch of movies. Some
Yeah.
you like, some you hate. And now you're
Yeah.
making one yourself. Does that put a target on your back? And kind of what's your thoughts on that? Does that change the way you review movies going forward now that you've been through the process and been through the hell? Does that maybe pull your punches back? Like, I've been there before, I'm not going to give them too much shit on that? Or do you just,
That's, oh, that is, might be the best question I've gotten today. This is so good. Because I have been a film critic from the beginning. I started Film Threat in 1985 when I was a kid. Here, I'm still doing it. I'm still reviewing films, but I have made films. I made a short film. My first feature film right out of college was Cool Teenager from the Planet X, 16 millimeter movie. Then I made a movie called Red, starring Lawrence Tierney, about the famous tube bar tapes, and that one you can find. It's around. I also I co-wrote and produced a movie called My Big Fat Independent Movie, which was released in 2005. So I've made films already in the course of reviewing movies. I'm not going to stop reviewing movies. I am not going to pull my punches, but I will say this: when I review an indie movie, I look at it differently than I would say the latest Marvel movie. And I'll tell you why, because I always look for tone, style, what the director's intent is, and how well they achieved it. So, like, I look on some indie movies as like a bird with a broken wing. I want to, through its flaws, I want it to fly and reach new heights. But because I understand, because I've made independent films. But I always look for, like, well, what is because you know, you can't judge an independent movie the same way you judge a studio movie. Marvel movies have no excuse to fail. Movies from the big studios have no excuse to fail. They have all the money in the world. They have people at the top of their game and the best at what they do. They've got marketing to support. It will be released in a movie theater because they've decided to spend 10 million, 100 million, 200 million dollars on a movie. There is no excuse for any movie you see made from a Hollywood studio, no excuse for them to fail. But the fact that an indie filmmaker from the Midwest can spend a year or two on a film, spending almost no money, and make something that is worth seeing, that is to be lauded and applauded in my book. And because I've been there, I probably judge indie movies a little bit differently than I would studio movies. But if your studio movie where you had a lot of money to spend isn't great, if it's less than a thrilling experience, you failed. Indie films, I look for diamonds in the rough, is what I'm looking for. Movies that, you know, they transcend above, you know, the budget, so to speak.
well, I usually save this for the last, but it kind of leads into it. We have a what's in the box segment. My co-host Bruce does, and we have people put movies in the box, and these are movies that are kind of lesser seen movies, or like, that was a really good movie, no one talks about it. Why? Like, is there a movie, or since you're such a cinephile, maybe put 2 movies in the box, because I'm guessing one would be a tall ass. Maybe 2 might be a bit easier. But
Oh,
what's something you'd like to put in the box that just literally no one talks about?
oh my God. I could just look over to my shelf right here and probably see a couple. Do you want me to grab them?
Yeah, go for it.
I'll grab them to show you. So let's see what's on my shelf right here. Okay.
Do an impromptu DV Tuesday.
Yeah, a little impromptu. Wait, I got another one over here. I'll give you more than a few. Here we go. What do I got here? Okay. Yeah. All right. All right. This is looking good. Looking good. Okay. Here we go. I'm going to give you a little impromptu. Thank you for your patience here. I'm jumping in. I'm jumping back in. Here we go. All right. This is the new Invaders from Mars. This is the 4K restoration of the original Invaders from Mars from the 1950s. It is a classic. This movie haunted me as a kid. The music and sounds. It is now available in a 4K Blu-ray with the restoration. It's absolutely amazing. The director's cut of Dark City, which is a classic, such a great, just an amazing atmospheric film that's been very influential. Strong recommend for that. This I got and I have seen. I haven't cracked the Blu-ray yet, but it's an animated film called The Old Man Movie, which is a weird claymation animated film that I find very entertaining and strange. Didn't get a wide release. It's like an independent animated film, something very worthwhile. And last but not least, probably one of my favorite horror comedies that I've ever seen, in a special edition box set that comes with an action figure. It is Psycho Gorman. Came out, it's in the Blu-ray, and it comes with an action. Can you see that? Can you see? I'm trying to like avoid the light. Oh my God. This is such a dark film. It's from the point of view of these kids that basically have this dark lord from another dimension that is a murderer, and it's entertaining as hell. So much fun. And this set comes with an action figure. What could be better? What could be better than
nothing? Psycho Gorman's great.
Oh,
one of my favorite lines is when he's like, "I found you 2 more contestants for your game of nonsense."
yes. Oh my God. And then the horrific thing where he turns the little kid into like a ball of glob, and he just
the brain,
the whole movie. Oh my God. It's so, there's so many. First of all, you would be really irresponsible to show that movie to a kid.
I'm irresponsible. He did.
Well, it depends on what age, right?
Yeah. But they're pretty young, but they like they saw it for the Gore-esque kind of comedy that it was.
That's awesome. But it's God, one of my favorites, probably one of the best horror comedies of the last several years, I would say. I don't know if there's anything that's come out that kind of tops it.
Have you seen Uncle Peckerhead?
Yes, I have. That one was really good. Like a different take on kind of a zombie movie, which I thought was great. The touring band. Oh my God, I loved Uncle Peckerhead.
Yeah. That one. And then when Psycho Gorman came out, I was like, well, I have the perfect double feature for the rest of my life.
Yeah, God, that is great. Add Terrifier 2 in there with Art the Clown,
and
you've got a triple feature. Some call Terrifier 2 a comedy. So there are parts that are just bizarre in that film. I love it. Damien Leone is just incredible. He really is amazing.
Are they doing something else, or was that? Oh no, maybe that was something I saw of yours. Something about talking about doing a Friday the 13th or something.
No, someone said Damien Leone did the Film Threat live cast. So subscribe to my channel on YouTube. Check out Film Threat. We interviewed Damien Leone about Terrifier 2, and people in the chat, he mentioned Damien himself, the director of Terrifier 2, said, I would love to do a Friday the 13th movie. And then everyone in the chat was like, have him make it. How do we contact? And I said, I tried to explain like, well, who owns the rights and how he would do that. But, that movie, Terrifier 2, made over $10 million at the box office. It was a crowdfunded movie that was made for $250,000. Damien Leone is a legit incredibly talented director, with a movie that, and this is what I look for, right? That movie does not look like a $250,000 movie. That looks like a several $1,000,000 movie made for 250 grand. He is a viable talent. And so when he mentioned in the chat during that interview that he wanted to do a Friday the 13th film, people were like, help him get. I'm like, I don't know everybody in Hollywood. I live in Pasadena, California. I'm not, I don't know everybody, but I'm sure Damien's next movie will more than likely be Terrifier 3. But trust me, he is having some studio meetings at this point in his career because he is a star on the rise.
Yeah. I wonder if anyone that owns the rights to Friday the 13th know who owns the rights to Friday the 13th, because I always thought there was like a weird mix up about that.
That happens, unfortunately, with properties, kind of the longer they're around. I mean, famously, George Romero lost the rights to Night of the Living Dead.
As soon as it came out. Forgot to
Oh
put
my God.
the copyright thing on it.
Yeah, it just is so bizarre. There's so many weird stories like that. It was literally like a clerical error, which is sad. George Romero, great filmmaker, maybe not a great businessman. I had the opportunity to meet him several times. What a genuine, amazing person he was. So, and I was oddly enough, I'm such a fan of the original Night of the Living Dead. I knew some guys who were on the special effects makeup crew for the remake directed by Tom Savini.
Oh yeah.
I drove from Michigan out to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to be one of the featured zombies in the remake of Night of the Living Dead with Tony Todd and Patricia Tallman. And Tom Savini directed me in a scene. You can see me. I've got like this red shirt on, and I'm the first, after the truck blows up that Billy Butler is in, I drag the body out of the truck, and I'm the first one to start eating, which it was cold. It was cold chicken and sausage covered in that blood sauce. It was disgusting. It was awful. It made me gag, but I was just like, I just stayed in character. It was fun being directed by Tom Savini, and you can see me in the background of certain scenes. I had what they called featured makeup and a drooping eye. So
I was actually going to ask you about that too, because like as much of a classic as Night of the Living Dead is, Tom Savini's, why would they remake Night of the Living Dead? And then I watch it, I'm like, this is really good.
It's actually really good. And there's a really good documentary that came out recently about Tom Savini. I'm forgetting the name, but just look up Tom Savini documentary.
If it's not called Sex Machine, that's a wasted.
Yeah, exactly. But he talks about like what the original ending of his remake was supposed to be. You see footage of him working on it. I think he was getting a lot of pressure on the budget for that movie, so whatever. But my God, those films, Dawn of the Dead just scarred me as a kid. I loved it. Saw it when I was like, I don't know, 14, 15 in a theater. God, I love the original Dawn of the Dead. Day of the Dead, I think, was just ambitious. I just love those of the Dead movies. Yeah. The Romero verse, so to speak.
Yeah. I even like Land of the Dead. I remember that got a bunch of shit when it came out, and I'm like, what is everyone talking about? This thing's awesome.
It's all of George Romero's movies. He doesn't really push an agenda, but he explores ideas.
Yeah.
Dawn of the Dead is about consumerism set at a mall. Land of the Dead is about, classism, class warfare, the rich people, the elites, and the poor, and kind of where your standing is. Like really, really, and he doesn't like push agenda or push any sort of political statement. It's there if you look for it. If you don't look for it, perfectly enjoyable zombie movies.
Yeah. And that's usually the way you kind of want to go about stuff like that. Although there's some, I would say there's some like maybe a political message or just idea you want to get through where you have to be completely on the nose because people just aren't getting it in real life. So it's almost like you got to shove their face and go, look at it.
Yeah, well, even Day of the Dead, how it was originally envisioned, it was going to be about the military industrial complex, about warring, like literally armies of zombies represented by different countries, used as an instrument of war. And unfortunately, he just didn't have the budget to do it, to do the sort of mass scale. I mean, we're talking about like Lord of the Rings epic style battles with armies of zombies. They kind of did that in World War Z. The World War Z book is much better. I could talk to you about zombies for a whole other show.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I really wish they had made Romero's original script for Day of the Dead. It turned into something different, but I have such an affection for that period of time because it was all practical zombie effects, right?
Yeah.
It was so great. And Return of the Living Dead, very different in tone, more of a comedy than anything else. But my God, so good, so good.
Well, love to have you on again sometime. This has been fun, but gotta head out. I do want to point our listeners to you have a interview on Film Courage. Clickbait title aside, you had a bunch of great stuff in there. And just trying to stay away from a lot of that in this interview because you nailed it so perfectly the first time around. But thank you for showing up, and I hope I hope the documentary comes out well, and I hope it was all worth the headache that you had to go through all those years to
Well,
make it.
it's my pleasure. I mean, I feel indebted to everyone who contributed to the crowdfunding campaign to deliver on the movie. So go to attackofthedoc.com or follow Attack of the Doc on all the platforms and check out my show Film Threat on YouTube. And the Film Courage interview, I don't make up those titles, but as far as I'm concerned, if you ask me anything, I will give you an honest answer.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do anything else. So there you go.
But I remember looking at it and was like, worst movies ever, or this is how you fix Hollywood. It's like, God, this guy didn't even like movies. Why?
Well, I think one of the ones that got a lot of traction was why 99% of movies today are garbage. I think it has like 3 million views.
Yeah.
And it's just me very pointedly, plainly, in common sense English, just telling you the state of current day Hollywood in like 15 minutes. So I've gotten a lot of people to talk to me about that interview, among others on Film Courage. But look, I'm very passionate. I'm passionate with my opinions about films, and I'm passionate also about making films. So Eric, thanks again for taking the time to chat with me.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I'd love to do it again. This was very fun.